सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। After having given the knowledge of the self, and also after having given the technique to prepare the mind to receive the self-knowledge, so after having given in gist Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, then Bhagavan gives what are the signs of progress in spirituality. So as a person progresses in spirituality, he becomes more and more dispassionate. There is more and more clarity with regard to thinking. There is freedom from all kinds of delusion. And also there is abidance in the self. So then when Arjuna listens to this discourse by Bhagavan, he develops an interest to know the man of realization. So Arjuna asks Bhagavan, please describe a man of realization. What are his characteristics? How does he respond to the world? In what way he is different from us? In what way he carries himself in this world, meeting the day-to-day problems? So answering this question, Bhagavan says, Arjuna, the central characteristics of a Mahatma is Atmanyev Atmana Tushtaha. He is totally contented in the self. This contentment, this peace, this joy which he experiences in his own self, it expresses in various ways. How does it express? It expresses as no more desires in the outer world. He is able to give up all worldly desires. And moreover, he remains unaffected by the ups and downs of life. Life keeps on giving him dukkha and sukha, just like any other person in this world. But what is his attitude? Dukkheshu anudigna manaha. The mind is not disturbed in dukkha, and moreover the mind doesn't crave for sukha. What is his state of mind? Vita raga bhaya krodha. A mind which is free from all negativities, like attachment, like fear, anger, etc. And how does he carry himself in this world? Sarvatra anabhisneha, free from any kind of attachment to anything or anyone. Freedom from attachment. And therefore, he is able to withdraw his senses at will from the world, just like a tortoise. He is able to withdraw his mind and the senses at will. So this is the way in which he carries himself in the world, remaining unattached everywhere. Now Bhagavan takes a slight digression from the topic. Now some of the verses are meant for the sadhakas. How to gain this mastery over the senses, and why the mastery over the senses is absolutely essential for a seeker of knowledge. This is the topic for almost the next 10 verses. So first, let us see the next 3 verses. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manah tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparah vashe hi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. Yes. So here Bhagavan gives the importance of controlling the sense organs. Arjuna, there is no choice. So instead of taking 59th verse first, we will take 60. We will take 60 and then we will go back to 59. So what does verse number 60 says? Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha. So a seeker who is vipaschitaha. Vipaschitaha means wise, knowledgeable. He has studied all the scriptures. He has understood the logic. He is thoroughly convinced. So he is a knowledgeable person. He has attended satsang. He has understood the message of the scriptures. And therefore he is a knowledgeable person. And yatataha api, he is striving also. It's not that he is not striving. He is not a lazy person. And he is striving in the right direction. But Arjuna, indriyani pramathini. All these indriyas are pramathini, is very, very turbulent. So therefore, there is absolute necessity to discipline them. If you don't discipline them, haranti prasabham manah. It just forcefully loots away the mind. It disturbs the mind. Whatever little peace you have got through your sadhana, everything will go away if you don't discipline your sense organs. So Bhagavan is very, very insistent upon this. Disciplining the sense organ means practicing Dhamma. Now what is practicing Dhamma? As a spiritual seeker, it is our prime duty and responsibility to see that the mind is always peaceful and quiet. Because only when the mind is peaceful and quiet, higher contemplation is possible. So in order to keep this mind fit for doing sadhana, what has to be done? You have to be very careful with regard to what kind of world you are exposing your senses to. In this world, there are good things, there are bad things. In this world, there are spiritually uplifting things, there are spiritually destructive things. Everything is available in this world. In the form of television, in the form of internet, in the form of books, in the form of various kinds of company, people. You are constantly exposing yourself to the world. Bhagavan is telling, beware, be choosy. There are things which can pollute the mind. There are things which can elevate the mind. You have to be very, very, very choosy when it comes to exposing yourself to the world. Everything is there in the world. Every type of people are in the world. Indriyani pramathini. If you indiscriminately expose yourself to the world, chances are that whatever little progress you have made, you will lose everything. Indriyani pramathini, they are very turbulent. They are capable of destroying your peace completely. So therefore, beware. Now this we can, in our own life we can see. You watch some third-rate movie and then just sit for 10 minutes in meditation. Just see your state of mind. You involved in some gossip, come back, sit for some time with yourself with closed eyes. You will see how much the mind has been polluted. Read some third-rate novel, sit for some time in meditation. You will see how much the mind has been disturbed. It is something which we can, in our own life, in our own experience, we can find. It is not something very new to us. Bhagavan is saying, pay very much attention to this. As a seeker, you can't just go and mingle with everything and everyone. You have to be extremely careful. Just like a small sapling has to be protected with the fence, in the same way, in the beginning of sadhana, we have to protect our mind by disciplining our senses. Because all the negativities, they enter through the sense organs, especially the eyes and the ears. So we have to be extremely careful. Only the filtered things should get in. That's why in Upanishad, that Shanti mantra itself says, Bhadram karnebhi shrunayama, Bhadram pashyema akshabirya jatraha. O Lord, may we hear only the auspicious things. May we see only auspicious things. This is the prayer. Because all the negativities, or whether good or bad, they enter mainly through the eyes and the ears. So we have to be extremely careful. Then Bhagavan gives one more very useful tip for the sadhaka. Verse number 59, you come now. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah. So such a seeker who is very careful with the kind of world he is exposing to. A serious spiritual seeker, such a spiritual seeker is called here as Niraharaha. Niraharaha means what? The one who doesn't take ahara. Literally, ahara means food. So here, a spiritual seeker who is not polluting his mind through his senses, such a person is called a Niraharaha. Meaning, he doesn't give ahara to the sense organs. Each and every sense organ demands certain ahara, food. What is the food which the eyes demand? Color and form. What is the food which the ears demand? Sound. Isn't it? So actually we are feeding our sense organs when we are exposing ourselves to the world. So here the seeker is called a Niraharaha, meaning he doesn't feed junk into his sense organs. He is very careful with regard to the food he eats. It is not just that what you call mouth food which you are talking of. We are talking of the food with respect to each and every sense organ. So such a person who is very careful with what he is feeding his sense organ, such a diligent seeker is called here as Nirahara. So what happens when you become Nirahara? When you control your senses, Vishaya vinivartante. Automatically, since you are not showing interest in the sensuous worldly things, automatically they will recede. Either they will recede or you will recede. In short, what will happen? The sense objects will not come in contact with your senses. You are protected. But Arjuna, even though you are protected from the external influence, external polluting influence, you are protected, no doubt, but still Rasavarjam. Rasavarjam means there are so many negative vasanas already there. Now they will start troubling you. External world will no more trouble you because you are cut off from it. Now who will trouble you? The rasa which is already there in the mind. The vasanas, the negative vasanas, that will gurgle up. Because of so many years, so many births, you have exposed those senses to those negativities. So all those negativities are there in the mind in the form of various kinds of vasanas. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madhamasari, everything is there. They will start gurgling up. And you will have a natural inclination and taste for it. Because it has become your habit. Those negativities, because it has become your habit, it will be expressed now and then. That rasa, that taste for it will be there. The taste for the sensual indulgences will be there. It won't go away. But then Arjuna, don't worry. Why? Asya rasaha api param drishtva nivartate. Even though these negativities are there, but as you keep doing your sadhana, as the mind starts experiencing the higher joys of meditation, of devotion, etc., slowly that mind which is tasting the higher will start leaving the lower. Param drishtva, having seen the highest, nivartate, that rasam also will go away. Don't worry. So what is the first step? Cut off from the negative influences of the world. How do you cut off? By not exposing your sense organs. This is the first step to be done by any beginner in spirituality. If you know that certain place will pollute your mind, don't go there. If you know that certain books, certain TV programs or website of the internet will pollute your mind, don't go. Now this is called Dhamma. This is the first step to be done. Then after that, deal with the negativities of the mind. How? By meditating upon the higher. Whatever negativity is already there, it will go. As the mind starts tasting the higher, all the negativities of the mind will automatically go. You need not worry. Therefore, verse number 61. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha. May that seeker, Tani indriyani sarvani sanyamya, having controlled, having disciplined all the senses, Sanyamya, having disciplined them, may such a person, Yukta Asita Matparaha, may he consider me as the highest and may he be seated. So after having disciplined the senses, what he should do? Now the mind has nothing to do because the mind is no more indulging in the world. Mind is free. What you should do with the mind? Don't keep it idle. What has to be done? Let the mind contemplate upon me. Let it meditate upon me. Don't keep it idle. Arjuna, Vashehi yasyendriyani tasya pratnya pratishtita. Such a person who has his indriyas under his control, the mind under his control, such a person will have a clear intellect. He is called a sthita pratnya. A person who has total mastery over his mind and the senses. Now Bhagavan, tell me one thing. What happens to the person who doesn't pay attention to any of these instructions? He totally indulges in everything of the world. What happens to him? So the next two verses talk about the ladder of fall. How we fall in our life when we are indiscriminate with respect to our sensuous indulgences. Next two verses, very famous verses. Let us chant. Dhyayato vishayan pumsah sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamah kamat krodho bhijayate krodhat bhavati sammohah sammohat smriti vibhramah smriti bhramshat buddhinashah buddhinashat pranashyati. Yes. So here is a ladder of fall of all those people who live a licentious life. So what is the first thing? Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. So here is a person who is indulgent, who is sensuous. So naturally what kind of thoughts will arise in his mind? Whatever way you have trained your mind, that way it will behave. Bas. What will be the nature of your mind? The nature of your mind will depend upon in what direction you have trained the mind. What all kinds of thoughts you have entertained in the mind. That will become the swabhava of the mind. So a saintly person will have only divine thoughts, mainly divine thoughts. A criminal person will have only criminal thoughts. There is such a big difference between the quality of a mind of a good person and a bad person. Who has decided this quality? We ourselves. So as far as a sensuous person is concerned, what kind of thoughts he will have most of the time? It will be the thoughts related to the Vishayas. So therefore, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa means the person meditates upon Vishaya, some sense pleasure, some sensuous object. So here meditation means thinking. All the time a sensuous person will be meditating upon, having the thoughts upon some sensuous object. So now the first step is Vishaya Dhyanam, which is natural for a licentious man. Then what happens? With that Vishaya Dhyanam, next one, Sangaha Teshu Upajayate. From that comes Sangha. Sangha means desire. In this context, Sangha means desire. So when you think of a sense object, when you think of it, you come to know, oh, this sense object has the ability to give me happiness. So since this object has the ability to give me happiness, automatically what comes? You tend to desire for that object. Desire comes. You imagine about that sense object and you remember all those past experiences. In the past, this sense object has given me happiness. So let me gain that happiness again by indulging in it. This desire to indulge in that object is called Sangha. Then what happens? Slowly, again and again you are thinking of that object. Slowly, the momentum, the flux, the intensity of the thought becomes more and more. Then Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha, third step. The very same Sangha takes the form of Kama. Here, Kama means intense craving. Intense craving. That mild desire becomes intense craving. Now what do you mean craving? Craving is that state where you feel, without this I just can't live. It is a state of helplessness. Earlier the desire was only in the mind. Now the desire has become so strong that it starts taking expression through the body. Meaning, now the person has no control over himself. The physical body literally goes to indulge in that object. This Kama forces the person towards that object to indulge in it. So Kama means extremely forceful desire, which a person cannot control. Now after Kama, what should come? There are two possibilities. Either you will get the object or you will not get the object. These are the two possibilities. He is literally trying everything to get that object. Now if you get that object, what will happen? You will indulge in it, and whatever addiction is there, that addiction will become a little more. After every indulgence, addiction is a little more. There the matter ends. For some time he is relieved after indulgence. Now that branch is not taken up by Bhagavan. What is the other option? Sensuous object is there. Somebody is preventing me from indulging in it. Because most of the time, 99% of the time, it is something immoral, something adharmic, something unrighteous. You are creating trouble for others in the process because the Kama has no eyes. Then what happens? Somebody comes, prevents you from indulgence. What happens to this Kama? The very same intense attachment takes the form of Krodha. Kamat Krodha Abhijayate. It becomes intense anger. Greater the intensity of Kama, greater will be the intensity of Krodha also. And what happens when Krodha comes? Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Not just moha, sammoha. Total delusion. Meaning what? In that moment of anger, What is right, you see as absolutely wrong. What is wrong, you see as absolutely right. This is called moha. Delusion is always atasmin tad buddhihi. What is there you don't see, what is not there you see it. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Smriti vibhrama means loss of memory. All those things which you know, it is no more of any use. You might have studied scriptures, that knowledge is of no use. Whatever knowledge you have, which would have guided you rightly, that knowledge is no more available for you. Smriti bhramshat buddhi nashaha. Now the buddhi also gone. Buddhi takes decision what is right, what is wrong, etc. based on the past experience, based on knowledge. Since knowledge is no more available, buddhi is also not able to take right decision. In fact, it takes wrong decision. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. With the destruction of intellect, that person, pranashyati means he perishes. The whole thing, to understand, let us take a simple example. Examples can be multiplied. Plenty are available in this world. Let us take a very simple example. So there is this child, he is studying in some standard, maybe 8th standard, 9th standard, whatever. Tomorrow is the exam day. So what is he supposed to do? He is supposed to study. And he is studying also. But then he is addicted to one thing, and that is playing video games, etc. in the mobile phone. Every day he has been doing it. And as he was studying, suddenly dhyayato vishayan pumsah. This thought came, let me play for some time. Exam is tomorrow. Let me play for some time. First it was only a desire. Why not play for some time? It will be refreshing for me. I am already tired studying this, that, whatever. One desire. That is called as Sangha. Now again and again you are constantly thinking about it. That Sangha becomes Kama. So he was in his room. There the mobile is not there. To get the mobile he has to go to his father's room. Father's mobile he used to play. So what happens? That Kama forces him to leave his room and go to his father's room. He goes there, mobile is there on the table, he takes it and starts playing. As he starts playing, his mother comes. What are you doing? Tomorrow is the exam and you are in this. Mother started shouting. Like any other mother. Now what happens? As he was listening to this shouting, this irritated mother is shouting loudly. This irritation naturally passes on to him also. He was also irritated. He became so angry. Now what happens when anger comes? See all this. Sammohaha. Means what? What mother is telling is right actually. He is supposed to study for the exam. He should know that what he is doing is wrong. Sammoha means a feeling that what I am doing is right, she is wrong. Actually it is the reverse. She is right and he is wrong. But when that sammoha comes, you feel you are right and she is wrong. Meaning, the very same person who is your own mother, who is your well-wisher, becomes the greatest enemy. Now see, this is sammoha. What is there is your well-wisher, and what are you seeing? Your greatest enemy. Sammoha. Smriti vibhramaha. Sammoha, smriti vibhrama. Smriti gone. What is smriti? This mother has taken care of me so much. Whatever I am today, it is because of her sacrifice. So much she has done for me. I should be grateful to her. Everything gone. Smriti vibhrama. Loss of memory. I forget everything what she has done to me. Then, smriti bhramshat buddhi nashaha. What does the buddhi normally say? I must respect my mother. I must love my mother. I must obey my mother. This is what the buddhi say. Now the buddhi is no more there. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. Now, because of that irritation, now this is a real incident. He takes that mobile and bangs it on her head. Out of that irritation, out of that anger, because his mother is shouting. He takes that mobile and with great force he banged it on her head. It struck on her head. She fell down unconscious. Blood was flowing. Immediately she was admitted to the hospital. After that, this boy realized, what a big mistake I have done. But it was too late. Now this is called pranashyati. Now see, everything gone. Mobile gone. Mother in the hospital. Now with this state of mind, can he study? Study gone. This is called pranashyati. Now see that ladder of fall. If he had in the beginning itself, while studying, when that thought came, let me play. If only he could have corrected there, this danger could have been stopped. Why he could not correct there? He could not correct there because this playing had become an addiction. Why it has become an addiction? Indiscriminate use of that mobile phone. Indriyani pramadhini. That was the reason. So see the ladder of fall. So that's why Bhagavan says, be very careful with respect to using this sense organs. It can become your greatest enemy. It can totally destroy you. But suppose you have total mastery over your mind and the senses, then what will happen? The ladder of rise is presented next. Let us chant the next two verses. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayanindriyaischaran atmavashyir vidheyatma prasadamadigaccati prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasyopajayate prasannachetaso hyasho buddhih paryavatishthate. Yes. On the other hand, ragadvesha viktaihi tu means on the other hand. On the other hand. Now we are going to discuss about the ladder of rise. So what is that first term? Vidheyatma. He has kept his mind and the senses fully under control. A perfect sadhaka. So whenever the mind has a desire, immediately, because he is a regular meditator, regularly he does his sadhana. Morning and evening he has time for it. He does his prayer, he does his meditation, etc., etc. And therefore, one part of the mind is always looking within. When you regularly do your sadhana, you develop the ability to look within. So what happens when you develop this ability to look within? Whatever happens inside, very early stage, you come to know. It is not in that in a sadhaka, kama, krodha, etc. doesn't come. It comes. But the beauty is, even when it raises its hood, a sadhaka is aware of it at a very early stage. 1 thought, 2 thought, 4 thought, 8 thought, 16, 32, 64. As it becomes 2, 4, etc., he knows it. Because one part of his mind is paying attention within. So whatever is happening in the mind, he knows. As it builds up, immediately he comes to know, immediately he diffuses the danger. Negative thought is rising, immediately he replaces the negative with positive. In him, that alarm bell rings at a very early stage. The red signal comes. And since he is aware at a very early stage, he is able to correct it at a very early stage. Correction at the early stage is very easy. Detection at the very early stage is very difficult. If you are able to detect at a very early stage, you can very easily correct it at that early stage. And this early detection is possible only if you do your sadhana regularly. Because it is an ability, it is a samarthya, it is a capacity to look within. It is something which can be developed over a period of time. Regular meditation will give you this ability to look deep within what is happening in your subconscious mind. And when you are able to see what is happening in your subconscious mind, you are able to correct it easily. And once correction is made there, you are safe. Because everything comes from thoughts. From the subconscious mind, the thoughts come into conscious mind. And from the conscious mind, the thoughts take the form of words. Thoughts take the form of actions. This is how it, gains momentum. The subtle becomes gross. This is how it comes out. So as far as a sadhaka is concerned, he is a vidheyatma. Vidheyatma means what? Mind and the senses totally under control, disciplined. So he knows what is he doing. He is very much aware of what kind of thoughts are passing through the mind. He is a master of himself. Such a person, Bhagavan says, even when Vishayan Charan, Indriyehi Vishayan Charan, even when he is roaming around in the field of sense objects with his Indriyas, with his sense organs, even when he is amidst sense objects. But what kind of sense organs he has? Atmavachyehi, fully under his control. Ragadvesha vyuktaihi, those senses which are free from likes and dislikes. This is the kind of sense organs he has. Those sense organs which are free from raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes, those sense organs which are totally under his control, with such a disciplined indriyas, even when he is amidst sense objects, what is his state of mind? Prasadam adhigacchati. His experience is prasadam. Prasadam means cheerful mind, a peaceful mind. See that? Even when he is amidst sense objects, he is undisturbed. What about the other person? He is not amidst sense object. Just one thought of sense object, he is destroyed. Pranashyati. Here, even when he is amidst sense objects, nothing can touch him. It is like wearing the raincoat and going in the rain. The rain is not able to touch you. Or it's like applying oil and cutting jackfruit. That sticky thing doesn't touch you. Isn't it? In the same way, when you move around in the world, it may be potentially polluting atmosphere also, but this person comes out unpolluted because the senses are so disciplined. Such a person, prasadam adhigacchati. Why this prasadam, this peaceful mind, this cheerful mind? Why is it important? Prasade sarvadukhanam hanirapsyopajayate. What is the definition of a peaceful mind? A mind where there is sarvadukhanam hani, absence of all sorrows, absence of all negativities. Such a mind is called a cheerful mind, a peaceful mind. So every moment this person is enjoying such a healthy, peaceful, cheerful mind. What is it that you moment to moment enjoy? What is that which you enjoy every moment? Your cheerful, peaceful mind is the one thing you enjoy. Isn't it? A person may be there in the 7-star hotel, but if the mind is not in good condition, his condition is miserable. Who cares where you stay? You may be in a hut, but if the mind is cheerful and peaceful, you are the happiest man, you are the richest man. Prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasyopajayate. What is the benefit of this cheerful and peaceful mind? Prasanna chetasaha hyashu buddhi paryavatishtate. The greatest benefit of a peaceful, cheerful mind is, with that mind, you can attempt for the highest. Contemplation becomes very easy for you because the mind is obedient. Mind listens to your instruction. Mind is available for higher contemplation, higher meditation. And with higher meditation, you gain the right knowledge. With right knowledge, your intellect becomes firm. You become a sthita prajna. To become a sthita prajna, what is absolutely essential is a peaceful mind. In fact, the peace and knowledge, they are connected. If you have a peaceful mind, you gain greater clarity with regard to knowledge. With greater clarity, greater the peace. With greater the peace, greater the clarity. Isn't it? Ultimately what happens? You experience infinite peace and firm abidance. This is where it leads you to. Only with a cheerful, peaceful mind, any sadhana is possible. And to have that peaceful mind, your senses must be disciplined. So this is that ladder of rice. The one who disciplines his senses, he will have a cheerful mind. And because he has a cheerful mind, he is able to do all the sadhana. And because he is able to do the sadhana, Shravana Manana Nidhyasana is possible only when your mind cooperates with you. And that's only possible when the mind is peaceful. And the mind is peaceful only when your senses are disciplined. So finally, through Shravana Manana Nidhyasana, you attain the highest ladder of rice. You become a Jivan Mukta, you become a Videha Mukta. So what has to be done? First aid has to be given in the beginning. What is the first aid? Control your senses. Again Bhagavan says, if the person doesn't control his senses, he had it. Next two verses. Nasti buddhira tasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutas sukham. Let us see this first. Nasti buddhihi ayuktasya. Ayuktasya buddhihi nasti. Ayuktaha means unintegrated one. Now what do you mean unintegrated one? Unintegrated one means the one who lives a loose life. No discipline with regard to any of his sense organs. A person who lives an indisciplined, immoral, sensuous life, such a person is called ayuktaha. There is no integration. Integration means what? There is no oneness. Oneness between his mind and the intellect. Intellect says something is right, but the mind is liking something else and he listens to his mind. They are not one. Very many times I like something but it is wrong. I dislike something but it is right. So what I should do? Should I listen to mind or intellect? Intellect says what is right and what is wrong. Mind says what I like and what I don't like. Whom should I listen? I should listen to the intellect, but this fellow listen to his mind. Whatever I like, I will do. According to him, that is freedom. Doing what you like is freedom, according to him. Pujya Gurudev says, not doing what you feel like doing is freedom. What is true freedom? Not doing what you feel like doing is freedom. Doing what you like, it is addiction. It is not freedom. It is slavery. So ayuktaha means totally disintegrated one. He values something, but he has no courage to live up to it. An immoral, sensuous person, what happens to him? Ayuktasya buddhihi nasti. For him there is no buddhi. Why he has no buddhi? He has never used buddhi, that's all. What you constantly use, you will have it. What you don't use, you will lose it. Bhagavan also thinks, poor fellow, he is not using his buddhi. Why unnecessarily give him? Let me take it back. Is it? No buddhi means no knowledge. Buddhi develops only when you constantly use it and live according to its dictates. Everyone has got the buddhi. Intellect is there in every one of us. It is constantly guiding us also. But the question is, are you listening to it? If you don't listen, slowly, that buddhi becomes blunt. It becomes dim. The sensuous vasanas make it dim. Like the torch, when that battery is dying, what happens to that light? When the battery dies down, that light also becomes dim. In the same way, the buddhi also becomes dim. So Bhagavan says, ayuktasya buddhihi nasti. And without this buddhi, nacha ayuktasya bhavana. Higher contemplation and meditation is called here as bhavana. Because there is no buddhi, how is it possible for him to do higher meditation? For doing higher meditation, you must have first done Shravana, listening to the knowledge of the scriptures. Only through Shravana, knowledge will come. But he has no buddhi, no knowledge is there. Then what will he meditate upon then? Meditation is impossible, contemplation is impossible. His mind is always rooted in everything lower. His baser passions are active in his mind. Lower passions are active. With such a heavy, rugged, gross mind, you can't lift yourself higher. Only the lighter things go up. Heavier things settle down, isn't it? This is true with the mind also. Purer the mind, lighter the mind. Lighter the mind, higher it is able to contemplate. Because to understand subtle concepts in philosophy, you need a sharp, subtle mind. Only the subtle mind can understand subtle concepts. Only a pure mind can be subtle. So therefore, if higher meditation has to be done, your mind has to be equally prepared. Just like while doing operation, you should have such kinds of instruments, isn't it? So since his mind is not prepared, no higher contemplation or meditation is possible. So then what? Nacha abhavayataha shantihi. Since he is not able to contemplate on the higher, meditate on the higher, therefore there is no shanti also, no peace. Unless your thoughts are noble, how can there be peace? If your thoughts are ignoble, you will be devoid of peace. Your peace will be in pieces, as they say. No peace, only disturbance. Because the mind is filled with everything negative. Negative mind is nothing but perpetual hell. Where is the question of Shanti? Your Shanti is directly proportional to the content of your thoughts. If your thoughts are all negative, Ashanti. If your thoughts are positive and noble and divine, Shanti. There's a relation, there's a cause-effect relation between what you think and the state of your mind. As your thoughts, so will be the state of your mind. This is a strict law. A sensuous person can never have noble divine thoughts. Thoughts will be negative. So therefore, Ashanti. And with such a disturbed mind, Bhagavan says, Ashantasya kuta sukham. Where is the question of sukham, peace, happiness? For a person whose mind is disturbed. So what is true sukham? True sukham is manashanti. Real happiness is the peace of mind. And to have that peace of mind, there is a price to be paid. And what is the price to be paid? Control your senses. What happens when we don't control our senses? The same topic, an example is given. Verse number 67. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano vidhiyate tadasya harate prajñam vayurnavamivambhasi. Yes, a person who just listens to the lower passions, the baser urges in him, in him. Charatam indriyanam. What is this indriyas doing? It is just wandering like a beggar. Everywhere it is there, good or bad. Wherever there is a sense pleasure, his senses are ready to absorb it. Charatam, it is just roaming around, wallowing, wandering, no control, nothing. Charatam. Yen manaha anuvidhiyate. And those senses are perfectly backed by such a mind also. A sensuous mind backing the sensuous senses. Whatever the senses want, the mind says, very good, go ahead. That's exactly what I want also. So they have become a pair. Each one supporting the other. The sense organs, they love sense pleasures, and there is a mind which loves sense pleasures. So what is the mind doing? Mind is perfectly following those sensuous sense organs. What do they do? Now together they are tadasya harati prajnam. Together they become a very strong force and they loot away prajna. Prajna means right understanding, knowledge, intellect. Prajna. Sensuous senses fully backed by a sensuous mind loot the right understanding of the person. Once prajna is gone, everything is gone. Now for that, one example is given. What is the example? Vayur navam iva ambhasi. Like the Vayu. Vayu is the wind. Nava means a boat. Ambhasi, in water. Like a rudderless boat in water, carried away by the wind. So what is the condition of that boat? Normally they have some anchor or something to stabilize, to make that boat stationary. But suppose there is no rudder, there is no anchor, what happens to the boat? Whatever be the direction of the wind, in that direction the boat also goes away. So who is wind here? Charatam indriyanam, and mind. What is the boat here? Prajna, right understanding or intellect. And what is the anchor here? Abidance in the self or discipline, whatever. So what happens when a person has an indisciplined mind backing the indisciplined senses? No buddhi. That's why earlier it is said, Bhagavad Gita is the best commentary of Bhagavad Gita. So earlier it is said, Nasti buddhira yuktasya. Ayukta has no buddhi. Why? That answer is given here. An unintegrated person has no buddhi. Why? Here it is. He has no buddhi because his buddhi is carried away, looted by the mind and the senses. You will always find whenever Bhagavan makes a statement, Bhagavan proves that statement by another statement, maybe in another verse on the same verse. So the best commentary of Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavad Gita itself. Why an indulgent person has no buddhi? An indulgent person has no buddhi because that buddhi is taken away by the sensuous mind and the sense organs. And it is true. Now what actually does it mean? What it means is, a wandering sense organs will slowly create a samskara in the mind. What kind of samskara? The samskara of ragadvesha. Ragadvesha means likes and dislikes. So whichever sense object is giving me pleasure, I will have raga towards that. Whichever sense object is giving me pain, I will have dvesha towards. So this mind filled with raga dvesha is called the indisciplined mind. Now, how does it take the intellect away? when your Ragadvesha is very strong, you will always try to justify your likes and dislikes, and you will never be able to hear the truth. The truth is always colored by your likes and dislikes. This point we had discussed earlier also. Greater the likes and dislikes, greater the coloring. Greater the coloring, you are not seeing the truth, though you are looking at the truth. So then you tend to believe that what I see is right. Actually, what you are seeing is the projection of your colored mind, sensuous mind. So now what Buddhi will say, this is right because when I see, this is what I see. You are not seeing the truth. You are seeing the truth colored by your mind. So now the Prajna, the intellect, says this is the truth. So the Prajna, the intellect, misunderstands the distorted truth to be the truth. And accordingly, it takes action. Ragadvesha has tremendous power to distort the truth. Because what mind wants is, it wants what it likes. And what it likes, if it is something against what is right, then the mind manipulates in such a way that what I like becomes what is right. A Ragadvesha filled mind manipulates things. To give an example, so here is a diabetic patient. He goes to the temple. Full donne prasada is there. Now what should he do? Intellect says don't touch it. Forget about don't even look at it. But the intellect, my mind says, now the mind wants to eat. Raga is there. Now it has to justify why he should eat. So what is the justification? Prasad from Bhagavan. How can you say no to Bhagavan's prasad? Now this is called manipulation. The truth is distorted. Of course you can have prasad, take a little bit. No, whole thing has to be taken. Your own mind, tadasya harati prajna. So what has done? Indriyanam hi charatam. So Indriya has seen that prasadam. Fragrant prasadam. Nice to see. Nice to smell. Taste also is nice. So now this is Indriyanam hi charatam. In manon vidhyate, the mind says, Are vah, this I must have. But the Prajna says, no, you are a diabetic patient. Then both of them join together, and what do? They kidnap the Prajna also. And now the Prajna also says, yeah, prasadam, we should not say no. And the fellow eats it properly. Vayur navamiva ambhasi. Gone. The boat is gone. So therefore, Arjuna, so what is the message, Bhagavan? The whole thing is summarized in the next verse. 68. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrahitani sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratishthita. So almost 10 verses are totally dedicated to one thing: control your senses. Now this is not an instruction for the Sthita Prajna. It is an instruction for the sadhakas like us, beginners like us. Tasmat, therefore. Hey Mahabaho, oh mighty armed. Physically you may be mighty armed. But unless your senses are disciplined, you are not mighty armed, you are weak armed only. That person whose indriyani, the senses, nigrihitani, have been very well restrained, sarvashaha, from all sides at all times. has been restrained from indriyarthebhyah, from the objects of the senses. Tasya prajna pratisthita. Such a person alone can be called the one who has an established understanding, firm understanding. Such a person alone can be called sthita prajna, one who has mastery over his mind, his senses, and clear thinking with regard to intellect. So here emphasis upon the mastery over the senses and the mind. This topic is over here. Now again Bhagavan comes back to the sthita prajna. Who is a sthita prajna? Because that was the question. Bhagavan comes back. The next two verses are description of such a sthita prajna. Let us chant verse number 69. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. Yes. That which is night, ya nisha, sarva bhutanam, for all the beings, that which is night, tasyam sanyami jagarti. In that night, the sanyami, the disciplined one, he is wide awake. That which is night for others, it is daylight for a Mahatma. Yasyam jagrati bhutani, that which is day for all the beings, sa nisha pashyato munehe, for the seer, for a Mahatma who sees the truth, for him it is night alone. So that which is day for ordinary people, it is night for him. That which is night for ordinary people, it is daylight for him. Now what does it mean? From so many angles this verse can be seen. According to an ordinary person, indulgence in pleasure is the highest, greatest happiness. According to a Mahatma, indulgence in pleasure is poison. One considered it as nectar, the other considered it as poison. Isn't it? As far as a Mahatma is concerned, the self, the supreme self, is the greatest goal to be attained in life, not the world. According to an ordinary person, what self? Nonsense. World is a goal. According to a Mahatma, world is an illusion. According to an ordinary person, world alone is real. According to the Mahatma, the self is immortal. According to an ordinary person, self is the body which is only mortal. Just opposite. Everything is opposite. According to an ordinary person, happiness is outside. According to a Mahatma, happiness is inside. That's a very nice saying. Asha nama manushyanam kachit ascharya shrinkhala yaya baddha pradhavanti mukastishtati panguvat. Asha, desire, nama manushyanam kachit ascharya shrinkhala. This is a very strange chain. Asha, desire. Desire is a strange chain. The one who is bound, he runs around. And the one who is free, he remains like a lame person. Understood? Asha means desire. Is a chain. So what happens when a person is chained? He becomes bound, he can't move around, isn't it? This asha is a strange chain. The person who is bound is running around. And the person who is free from this chain, he is remain as though he is chained. He doesn't run around anywhere. The point is this. The Mahatma, he has understood that the happiness is here. So he has nothing to do. His only job is abide in the self. What about others? According to others, except here, everywhere there is happiness. So run, no run. That which is night for a Mahatma, daylight for others. Worldly pleasures, it is night for him, it is poison. For others, it is daylight. Everything opposite. There is some saying, no? In the night, who all are the people who are awake? One is Rogi, one is Bhogi, one is Yogi. Isn't it? I don't know whether there is another one also. In the night, who is awake? Rogi is awake. Why? There is no sleep. Bhogi is awake. Why? It is a time for bhoga. Yogi is also awake because it is absolutely silent. Meditation is the best time. Owl is also awake. Owl. So don't say Mahatma is like an owl. When it is night, it is daytime, and when it is daytime, not that sense. The point is this: according to a Mahatma, self alone is real, rest everything is an illusion. It's not that he is not seeing the world, but he has no importance for the world, because the world from the absolute standpoint is an illusion. What about an ordinary person? There is nothing called self for him. Only world is there. So that which is daylight for a Mahatma, meaning that self is experiencing so clearly, evidently, undoubtedly, 24/7 he is experiencing that Satchit Ananda Atma, that is daytime for him. That daytime is night time for the others, meaning ordinary person, he is also carrying that Atma, no doubt. He is carrying the very same Satchit Atma, but there is no experience at all, as though it is not existing. It is night for him. Just like in the night you don't see anything, in the same way, as far as the Atma is concerned, for an ordinary man, he is not seeing. The world, for a Mahatma, the world is an illusion, but for an ordinary man, that world is everything. This is a description of a Sthita Prajna from the highest standpoint. So very many times what the Sthita Prajna does, we are not even able to understand, because his level is so different. Very many times we brush him aside thinking he is a mad person. The fact is, he is the only person who is sane. Everybody is insane only. Anyway, continuing the next one. Mahatma is compared with a ocean.
Apuryamāṇamacala pratishtham samudramāpah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kāmāyam pravishanti sarve sashantimāpnoti na kāmakāmi.
Yes. Samudram. What kind of samudram? Apuryamāṇam. Ever full. It is totally full. Ocean is always full. Achala pratishtham. Established in the stillness. An ocean is all the time full. Independently full. Ever full. And is established in the stillness. Even when apaha pravishanti, millions of gallons of water they pour into the ocean all the time. But the level of the ocean, does it change? No. Absolutely unaffected. Why? Ocean is already full. The rivers, so many rivers bring so much of water, but it doesn't make any difference to the ocean. It is independently full, it is ever full. And thus, it is pratishtham, established. Achala pratishtham, it is established in its stillness. In the same way, a Mahatma. Tadvat kāmāyam pravishanti sarve. In a Mahatma also, kamas means sensory experiences, they enter. But though they enter, in a Mahatma also the senses are coming in contact with the sense objects, but those sense objects are not able to affect his sense of fullness even a wee bit. He is already full. The sense experiences are not able to contribute even a little more to his sense of fullness. Are you able to understand? So the sensory experience are the water. This Mahatma is the ocean. So just like the water pours into the ocean and the ocean remains ever full, not at all getting affected, in the same way a Mahatma also is also going through all the sense objects, sense pleasures, etc. But as far as experience is concerned, his experience is Purnatvam, ever full. Sashanti mapnoti, such a person alone really experiences Shanti, peace. Na kamakami. Kamakami means what? The desirer of desires. A person who desires sense pleasures, he can never attain Shanti. This is the point. The beauty of ocean is, it appears as though rivers are giving water to the ocean, isn't it, externally? Really speaking, who is giving water to whom? Rivers are existing because of ocean. But externally it appears as though rivers are giving water to ocean. Beautiful. If you keep on meditating on it, you will get so many wonderful points. Rivers exist because ocean exists. It is not that ocean exists because rivers exist. No. That is the kind of independence which ocean enjoys. A Mahatma is also like that. This is the glory of abidance in the self, in short. You attain that peace which passeth all understanding. Now the next verse, a very practical verse to attain happiness. Verse number 71. Vihaya kamanyas sarvan pumanscharati nisprihah nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati. Saha shantim adhigacchati. Such a person attains peace. Who is he? Nirmamaha, nirahankaraha, nisprihaha, nishkamaha. 4 points. Just remember these 4 points. Vihaya kaman means nishkamaha. So what are the points? Number 1, nirahankaraha. Your ego can take away your peace. So therefore, as much as possible, be egoless, be humble. Nirahankaraha. Nirmamaha, never be attached to anything. Never say this is mine. Everything belongs to God. You are only a temporary caretaker of whatever you have. This is the point number 2. Nirmamaha. First is nirahankaraha. Give up the ego if you want to be happy. Be humble, simple, down to earth person. Number 2, whatever possessions you have, never be attached to anything. Attachment is sorrow. So nirmamaha. Never say it is mine. What you should say? Namama. Idam namama, you should say. Everything belongs to God. For the time being, I am just a caretaker. Let me use it for the welfare of all. Nirmamaha. Next one, nishkamaha. Vihaya kamanyas sarvan. Give up all the desires of the mind. Nishkamaha. As much as possible, minimize your desires. Worldly desires. Minimize your needs also. Minimize your worldly needs. To that extent, you will be happy. Less luggage, more comfort. And the third one, nispriha. Now, what is the difference between kama and spriha? What you have enjoyed, desiring it, is called spriha. Spriha is a craving. Spriha actually means craving. So, if you want to have craving for something, it only means you have already enjoyed it, isn't it? In this world, there are only 2 things. One you have enjoyed, one you have not enjoyed. Desire for what you have not enjoyed is called kama in this context. And desire for what you have already enjoyed is called spriha. So when you are addicted to tea, that desire for tea is spriha or kama? It is spriha. You have enjoyed it, you have tasted the joy, therefore you are asking for more and more. That is called as spriha. You have not yet enjoyed it, but there is a desire to enjoy. Then that is called as kama. So be nishkama, be nispriha, be nirmamaha, be nirahankaraha. 4 pointers. In short, give up your ego. Aham mama, I and mine. Give up that and minimize your desires. Then such a person, shasantim adhigacchati. He will attain peace. Practical suggestions. And now comes the last word, the glory of this knowledge.
Esha brahmi sthitih partha nainam prapya vimukhyati sthitva syamantakaalepi brahma nirvana mricchati.
Arjuna, once you have attained to that Brahmi sthiti, that state of Brahman, the state of that Supreme Self, once you have attained to it, Nainam prapya bhumi, then again delusion can never come. Because this question may come. So, Bhagavan, I have gained knowledge, fine, but suppose I again become deluded? Bhagavan says that is impossible. Once you have got it forever. Just like once you have known that that is not the snake, that is rope, once you have known it, then again you need not know it, isn't it? There is no more confusion again. So Arjuna, just get it once, that will be forever. Na enam prapya mushkiti. You will no more be deluded again. Sthitvasyam antakalepi, even at the time of death, old man lying on the deathbed and suddenly gets his knowledge. Even then, Brahma Nirvanam Ricchati. Antakala it is called. The final moment also, if you get it, bas, you are liberated. Brahma Nirvanam Ricchati. He will attain to that blissful self. That bliss of the self, bliss of Brahman. He experiences it forever. This is the glory of the knowledge. Once you gain it, there is no more any question of getting deluded. Forget about Sthita Prajna, even at the sadhaka level also. This knowledge is so useful. As you evolve, as you progress itself, you start seeing all these benefits. With this, the chapter ends. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyayaha. Thus, the second chapter named Sankhya Yoga. Why is this chapter named Sankhya Yoga? Because the main topic discussed in this is Sankhya, self. Self-knowledge and the man of self-knowledge is the main topic of discussion. Therefore, the chapter has been rightly named Sankhya Yoga, which comes as Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvada, dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. And it contains both Brahma Vidya as well as Yoga Shastra. Brahma Vidya is Jnana Yoga, Yoga Shastra is Karma Yoga. Both are discussed in this very same chapter, which is the very essence of the Upanishads. So thus this chapter comes to an end. Boliye Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.